So, this was one of the episodes that I was the most curious about how they would handle in terms of adapting to the English dub, because episode 3 is just kind of a weirdly toned episode, even like in its original form. It's very up and down from like wacky military hijinks like Bill Murray and Stripes, and then it goes back to like the serious tone to the story, and it goes all over the place. A lot of weird artistic direction in this episode too, so I was really curious what they were going to do with this when they brought it over to Toonami. And I have mixed things to say. You should probably just kind of go through it from beginning to end. I don't know if anybody else caught this, but they made a flat-out mistake. In the American dub, he tells, he's talking to a row of people, and he tells row 3 to about face, and then he says, row 3 about face grunt.
Row 3 about face grunt!
But row 3 consists of multiple people, and he refers to multiple people as one grunt. A little bit of a mistake there in the script writing. I feel a little bad saying that I don't like the voice actor for Gene, but I don't like the voice actor for Gene. And that's bad. That sounds bad because the guy that does the voice for Gene is Mike McFarlane. He's actually the guy that's in charge of directing the English dub. Maybe I should rephrase. It's not that I don't like him, it's just I don't think it fits. Gene, keep in mind, these characters, the main cast of Attack on Titan, these trainees are teenagers. They're 15, 16, 17 tops. Levi is he's the exception because he's been in the Corps for a while. He's supposed to be like 23 or 24. He's like my age. So when Gene's mouth opens up and I hear this super deep 32-year-old man voice, it's really off-putting.
Look, I'm just speaking honestly here, kid. I think it's better than being some loudmouth, braggart, tough guy wannabe pretending he's not as piss-scared as the rest of us.
And it just makes me kind of baffled at the Reddit and fan consensus that wants Aaron's voice to be super manly and deep, and it's like, no, he's a teenager. He should sound like a teenager. That's why I like the guy that is doing Aaron's voice. His performance is really good. Same with Armin, same with everybody else. Everybody actually, now that we were actually at the point where everyone is at the age where they're going to be for the majority of the show, we can safely talk about their performances. And honestly, short story, I like them all. There isn't any one that does any better than the other. There's not anyone that really falters, except for maybe Gene. Gene actually, what I would specify again is that it just doesn't fit. McFarlane is good at doing the voice. It sounds natural. It's just that I don't think that it's good casting choice. But I mean, Connie is great. Marco is great. Everybody else really sounds really, really good. It's just that, again, and I keep coming back to this, some of the lines that they have them saying is so unnatural and out of place that it doesn't, again, it just doesn't sound like how people would talk. It's not, people have a very natural way of talking. And a lot of this, again, it feels like they didn't have, it's like they recorded the voices and the voices didn't match the mouth movements. So they went back and went through like a thesaurus and like just made looked up more complicated, longer versions of the words they were looking for. Basically, filling out doing the 12-point font and the double spacing for essays. Basically just padding it out is what it feels like.
He proves that drive and dedication do not always translate into capability.
Sir! I'm afraid that's the case, sir!
That is delightful to hear!
We seem to really excel at that back home, sir!
It looked quite delicious, and it was getting cold. So I gave it shelter in my stomach.
I do want to say one thing about Marco, and it's not really about the performance itself, but I feel like they made a mistake. I don't know much about voice acting in general. I have very little experience with voice acting. I tried doing it for a video game years ago, and that didn't pan out. When Marco is introducing himself, the drill sergeant is still talking to him. Like, he's still in the middle of his line, so it's almost like Marco cuts him off. And as a result, it kind of makes it hard to hear what his name was.
What the hell is wrong with your face, you smiling idiot?
Marco Butt, at your service, sir, from Gine, south side of Walrose.
And speaking of names, let's get to probably my biggest complaint with this episode in general, which again is just going to fall back to translation. They've changed so many of the characters' names. Instead of Connie Springer, it's Connie Spring.
Connie Springer from Rogaco Village, sir!
You have it backwards, Connie Springer.
Instead of Thomas Wagner, it's Thomas Wagner.
My name is Thomas Wagner. I'm from the Trost District.
Instead of Reiner Brown, it's Rina Brown.
Oh, Rhina and I.
And instead of Sasha Blouse, it's Sasha Browse.
Sasha Browse from Dapper Village at your service!
Sasha Browse, huh?
And I can't. It's one of those things. It's kind of like when they redid the original Star Wars trilogy. When it's like, it's such a minute change. I shouldn't be that mad. But the flip side of that is that it's such a minute change. Why did you bother doing it at all? Again, they're pronouncing these names like they are Japanese, and I guess I could make, and I wouldn't be bothered by it if the character's saying it, or if the characters that has that name was Japanese. But they make it a very clear point in the series to point out that Mikasa is the only Japanese character in the cast. Everyone else is European, French, German, whatever. So there's no real excuse for this. Like, why would you do that? When you went to go see X-Men 2, they didn't change Kurt Wagner's name to Kurt Wagner.
Wagner.
Because that's not how it's pronounced. They are American characters, and they're saying it the way America, or the English language, would pronounce it. And in the case of Sasha, changing her last name is actually a detriment to her character. Her last name comes from a German phrase, in Saus und Bras leben, which actually means to live off the fat of the land, which is very much her character. She's a hunter. She lives off of growing things and hunting and feeding off the fat of the land. So now that they've changed it, they've completely lost that meaning. Her last name, they may as well have changed her last name to Sasha Cumberbatch for all we know. Why not if you're going to change the name and lose that meaning altogether? The next thing I want to bring up is actually one of the more interesting things that I didn't think I would be talking about when I started this. In this new English redub, I knew that they were doing this for the Blu-ray, but I didn't know if that was going to incorporate into the Toonami version, the one that they broadcast on TV. But as it turns out, they have made several visual changes to the scenes. Like right here in the Japanese version, in mid-conversation, it will randomly just cut to different parts of the training grounds. But now in the English dub Toonami version, they've actually the camera stays on the characters that are talking, and it will move with them and kind of carry you to the next scene. You can actually kind of see their facial expressions and their interactions and where they're going, and it's interesting. I like it. It feels more complete. There's other little tiny changes here and there, like when Sasha's eating the bread in the original Japanese, her eyes go into kind of a cartoony look. I never knew if that was like a budget thing or artistic choice, but in this, in the American dub, now they've given her full eyes when she's in that very same scene. I've also noticed that Mikasa's sarcasm is completely gone. And I don't mean that in a bad way, I actually kind of like it. I like that we saw the little bit of quippiness in her as a kid, and now this situation is ever developing. It's taking big steps and changing, and she's kind of adapting to it. She's not wasting time anymore. This is a weird one. I kept going back and forth because, again, you know, the visual changes was nice. I like actually hearing the adult performers performing for their characters. Everyone across the board is solid. Everyone performs really, really well. But then on the flip side, they make all these changes to like the names, and they have the lines still feel kind of forced, and it kind of takes you out of the moment a little bit. Whereas even though the visual parts of the original Japanese were a little like weird, like why is it cutting to somewhere else in the middle of conversation, the lines that they were saying still kept the mood going despite what you were seeing. So I don't know, I can't really give the point to the dub or the sub because they both do good things, but they also both do bad things. So I'm kind of like, I guess it's a tie. I guess episode 3 is kind of a tie between the two. But again, this is a weird episode. We'll look forward to see what happens with episode 4, which is very character based, and then episode 5 from here on out will be very action packed and heavy. We'll see how they take that from there. So till then, adios guys. I'll see you next week for episode 4 of Attack on Titan. Dub or sub. Bye.
囚われた口づくは反撃の行使だ障壁のその彼方獲物を振る家が言葉知る衝動にその身を焼きながら黄昏に火をかつ憂いの弓矢